This row here is another member of the Allium family. This time it's Welsh Onion, or Allium fistulosum. You might think Welsh Onion, they're native to the UK. Well, it's another one of those naming problems when it comes to plants and common names. Welsh actually refers to the Old English or Anglo-Saxon term for foreign. These onions originate in Asia, so we're talking China and Japan mainly, where they're still cultivated today, as well as Korea and Russia. These are evergreen perennials, and they're grown essentially like gigantic chives. You might be able to see here that the stem itself is quite large but hollow, just like a chive shoot. So with these you can just cut them down to the ground and harvest the shoots, chop them up, stick them in your dishes for that lovely onion, leaky, chivey flavour. As with all alliums, you can actually eat all of the plant. So these do produce small bulbs at the base of the plant, which you can eat like onions. So this entire row here, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 10 plants. They came from one plant, which I bought last year, a place called Arlington Court. I divided up the groups of bulbs at the bottom and replanted them to try and get more stock. You can see here they're just about starting to come up with their flower shoots, which is going to be great. I'm going to want to be saving some of these seeds as well, because this isn't a very large crop which I've got here. But I'm looking forward to kind of propagating this and advancing it a bit more in the future. What we have right here, this giant monster, this beast, form of perennial cabbage, or well, perennial kale, member of the Brassica genus. Some people call this cottager's kale, Taunton Dean kale. This one in particular, I think it's a cutting of a cutting of a cutting of a cutting which may have been a Taunton Dean kale. I'm not 100% sure. This thing grows like stink. It's absolutely massive. 3 years ago, this was just a couple of small cuttings. You can see it produces these absolutely ginormous leaves. Nice and thick, a bit like kale. Unfortunately, not to everyone's taste. So they can, as they get a bit older, form a bit of a stringy structure to them, clog up your grinder and your blender as you're making your soups. But it's the price we pay for such a reliable plant. This one here in particular, last year, had a bit of a issue with the cabbage whitefly caterpillar. They chewed it down directly, all the way down to the stem actually. There was not a single leaf left on this thing. And you know, I don't water it, don't really feed it. I kind of chuck my grass clippings on underneath here. I don't even bother to weed it most of the time because it seems to do a good job itself. And it's doing really well. And if you want to grow these are the easiest thing in the world to grow. What you do is you grab a stem, yank it off, and then stick it in the ground. Anywhere this plant touches, it's going to root. Well, you might not get 100% rooting success on it, but this little plant here was one of the ones which I done last autumn. I did do 4 of them. I think some of them were attacked by pigeons, some of them by slugs, and some of them I might have accidentally hoed off. But hey, you know, it's the price we pay. Very easy way of propagation, very effective, and it just grows and grows and grows. These things can get so big actually that you're going to have to stake them. But where do these come from? Well, thankfully brassicas are, a lot of them are native to the UK. If you go along the coast, even particularly down in Cornwall, around near Newquay, you see all these kind of tree collards or kales growing along the coast. that's essentially what this family is. These are the founding fathers of things like broccoli and cauliflower and Brussels sprouts, if you can believe it. Thing is about a lot of these brassicas, people say, you know, as soon as they flower, they're going to die. Well, first of all, these take a long time to flower, these beasts, and I would like to hope by that time you would have taken quite a few cuttings of it, and it would have rooted pretty much everywhere else. And I find it quite charming actually that you get these purple tints on the leaves. Oh, it's great. It just feels sometimes like a bit of a shame to be harvesting them. Babingtons Leeks. Growing well. Now, what makes a Babingtons Leek a Babingtons Leek? These ones, you might have guessed, native to the UK, member of the Allium family. You can eat them like a leek, and you can grow them like a leek, although they are perennial. But what makes this one special is instead of setting seeds when they flower, they set bulbules, which are little tiny bulbs, hundreds of them per flower, and you can plant those out. So what I would say to you is instead of going on these seed sites and seeing a packet of 5 bulbules for £4 or whatever, utter rip-off. Find someone who's grown one of these, and one of the seed heads, there will be at least about 50 of these little bulbules, and that's what I done. I got these from the kind guys down at Plants for a Future down in Cornwall. I sowed 50 of them, little tiny bulbules, no watering, no feeding, not really caring for them. As you can see, I've got quite a few coming up. They should take about 2 or 3 years till they get to this state where they've got sizable stem on them, worthy of harvesting. I'm holding off on harvesting these ones in hope that they're going to flower this year. I'd love to kind of increase my numbers, but hopefully fill up a large amount of this empty bed where I've been experimenting with seed sowing, which is not going very well, with these guys for a bit more of a more reliable crop. And also, I suppose these might be good for the pollinators. This fella here is Siberian Pursulan, also known as Claytonia Sibirica. This one's got a little piece of history for me, holds a special place in my heart. It's one of the first unusual veg I started growing. I actually had grown these from seeds supplied by Mr. Crawford down at the Agroforestry Research Trust. I was growing these before I even knew I had an allotment. I was that eager to get started. These things are evergreen, perennial. They self-seed themselves all over the place. And you know what? I suppose they do look alright, don't they? How would you use them? Well, that's the main thing. Pull off the leaves, give them a good munch, and you get a nice earthy, beetrooty flavour to them. I would say if you are trying to grow these, first of all, don't do what I've just done and try and harvest them when they're not in flower, because they might go a little bit bitter. But if you're sowing them in modules and planting them out, their union between the stems and the roots is really, really fragile. I lost over half my plants through my brutish ways as I was planting them, and very easy to decapitate them all completely.